And so our pledge and mission statement reader, this is Hayden Joseph. It's her 6th year at SoCal. She's really a leader academically and socially. So we're really excited that she's representing us. And Hayden, come on.
Place your hand on your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You already.
Hill Union Elementary School District mission statement. Staff, students, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
All right.
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, Hayden. My name is Robert Dickinson. It's very nice to meet you. Welcome. I've got some great, wonderful things to say about you here. Is it okay if I read them out loud for everybody to hear? Fantastic. Hayden is a strong leader who showcases her skills both academically and socially. She is artistic, inquisitive, and clever. At school, Hayden excels at reading, enjoys being social with friends, and likes to learn new things. Her favorite books to read are realistic fiction and fantasy. She is looking forward to attending outdoor science school this year and learning new things outdoors. Hayden always has a positive attitude when engaging in instruction, completing assignments, and collaborating with others, and is always kind, considerate, and respectful with her peers. Outside of school, Hayden enjoys crocheting. That took me good. And junior guards. In the future, Hayden would love to be a teacher or a published author. Awesome. Would it be all right if we all asked you a few questions? Awesome. Okay, well, I'd love to know about junior guards and how is it scary in the water out there? Are you pretty comfortable?
They can be scary.
Yeah.
Big waves.
Yeah.
Wow, I bet. Do you go in a group with a lot of other people? Does that help you make you feel more comfortable on the water and everything, knowing a buddy's got your back or something? Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I know you like to play croquet. No, kidding.
Yeah.
You like crochet. We talked about that. And you said you would like to enter your, I guess crochet into the fair, right? At some
Yeah.
point? Great. And you're gonna, do you think you might do that next year? That's a great goal. I think that's wonderful. And then, artistic too. And what other, I know that's an art in itself, but what other art do you enjoy?
I like drawing,
Mhm.
and I just sometimes just like draw sometimes.
Perfect. We got notepads right here.
Hayden, I was wondering about outdoor school. What are you looking forward to? What have you heard about outdoor school?
Well, everybody said that it was really fun and that there was a zip line.
Well, that's, oh,
Yeah.
Do you have artwork on the wall up here?
No, I didn't have enough
Oh,
time to
okay.
finish, so they didn't get to put it up.
Well, I have a question for you. Do you have anything you would like us to know? Anything that you think people on a school board or, anyone involved in education, anything that we should know from a 5th grader's perspective? What would be the best way to be a help to kids? Is that too big of a question? That is a curveball. I'm gonna ask you another favorite board question. Do you have any pets at home? And if so, will you tell us about them? All right.
One pet.
Yeah.
He's a dog,
Uh-huh.
and his name is Ozzy.
Ozzy. Oh, sweet.
and what kind of dog is it?
He's a lot of different kinds of dogs.
Yeah.
That's the best kind. Yeah. Very cool. Thank you.
Is he named after Ozzy Osbourne? I have to ask. All right, I'm not. Yeah, Dad's like, yeah.
Well, you're the one who got her the ACDC.
Um, I don't know.
Actually,
What's his full name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne.
That's fantastic.
Oh, that is.
gosh.
See, we keep the
I-
question on.
I know.
That is great.
I think I'm seeing the word writing
Yeah.
books. It runs in the family. Very, yeah, the
Books.
author, the future author.
Right, you like to write as well,
Mhm.
and then you can draw,
Mhm.
do illustration with your stories as well.
I don't know.
Well, there you go. Now, what books do you like to read? Because you mentioned, you like, no,
Well,
Tricky.
right now, I'm reading Harry Potter,
okay,
Nice.
and I'm on the second book. I started the school year.
right, wow. A tough
Wow,
book.
it's 700 something pages already, right?
It's a lot of pages.
No.
Oh, no?
it's
I was saying, but you were on the second.
300 pages.
It's a lot of pages.
And you said you might like to be a teacher when you grew up. Is there a specific subject you might like to teach?
Maybe writing?
Do you have a favorite teacher? Oh, it's back there.
No, I like all my teachers.
Great answer. Great answer. Good answer. There's a lot of talent.
Well, Hayden, I'm so grateful that you came and started off our meeting. You are definitely the best part of our meeting. Is it okay if we get a picture with you and your family up here? All right. Oh, and if you want to pick something out, Hayden,
Teacher.
we've got wonderful goodies. Feel free to grab some and your your sibling. Can we give the certificate to hold?
Yeah. Yeah. Good cushion. Hello. Can I give this to you to hold up? That's right there. Hey, congratulations, Dad. Awesome job. Way to go.
Jamie, you should get in there too. Jamie,
Just put me in the back.
Jamie, you should get in there.
You were her teacher.
Thanks, Jen.
All right.
Say something quick.
Oh, am I?
I see your finger.
Yes, your sister can grab one. Can grab one. Yeah, that's why we got him. Thanks so much for coming down. Yeah, this was wonderful. And feel free to go have a really good night. You don't have to sit there.
Say that you don't have to.
They did. That one's lavender. You don't have to.
Make sure you say hello to Ozzy Osbourne. Because that's just too epic of a name.
Really. The king of Buckhead. Oh, okay. The prince of Buckhead.
You got it.
It's a framer.
Frame that, put that.
I'm-
You guys.
Yeah. And thank you.
Have a good night. You too.
And thank you, SoCal L, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Team SoCal L. All right. Always a highlight.
Mhm.
May we please have roll call?
Yes, trustee Gray,
Here.
trustee Jackson Miller.
Here.
Trustee Donnelly,
Present.
trustee Dickinson,
Here.
trustee Edmondson.
Present. May I have an adoption of the agenda?
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda.
All right.
It stands.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
All in, second? I'll second. All in favor?
I think,
Any opposed?
I was gonna say, I think there's a resolution in it.
Oh, okay.
For our friend the can limit.
Yes. All right. Yeah, resolution.
Yep. Trustee Edmondson,
Aye.
trustee Dickinson,
Yes. Yeah.
Trustee
Jen's
Dickinson?
doing the.
So, yes,
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
sorry.
Trustee Donaldson?
Ed.
Trustee Jackson Miller? Aye. Trustee Gray?
Aye. All right, motion passes. Moving on to public communications. Are there any public communications from the audience? All right, anything on
The
email?
only thing on email is on an agenda item, so we'll wait till that item.
Okay. Perfect. Moving on to standing reports. Would you like to start us off?
Yes, and I have quite a bit, so if I say it kind of fast, it's because I don't want to ramble on and take a lot of time. So I wanted to comment on the Latino Role Models Conference. It was this past Saturday. So thank you for the county office for putting on the event at Cabrillo College. It was a great event. Great author, Jaime Cortez was the keynote speaker, but lots of panelists, including students who spoke. Thank you, Jessica, Sandra Paredes in our office for coordinating the day and also coming to the event all day. Thank you, Enrique Domo, for driving us to the event. Shows that it takes a village to make all these things come true and remove barriers to family engagement. And thank you mostly to the 15 New Brighton students and their families, and the students who attended and embraced this great opportunity. Second thing I wanted to do a thank you for is the Capitola Art and Wine Festival. It was this past Sunday, a great community event. It's very important for us to be involved in our community. Shout out to Sandy Wallace, who originally took on coordinating our volunteer booth in this event. And thank you to Jen Del Carlo and Sandy Figueroa, who took the baton from Sandy and now coordinate our volunteer booth. And so thank you to the following folks who volunteered their time on Sunday when they didn't have to. Callie, Amanda, Ted, Jen, Carissa Lemos, Greg Broadhurst, Steve Cartwright, Lori Cartwright, Tristan Betke, George Lopez, Carlo Albano, Sandy Wallace, Jessica Glantz Kiernan, and Kathy Giannini, who did 2 shows for us. Many hands make for light work and also make a very fun way to engage with the community. We're continuing our practice of dialoguing with SEA. As such, I met with the new SEA president who's here tonight, Brian Koch. We met we met on Friday, September 6th. And then Allison and I had the opportunity to engage with the full SEA membership who was in their meeting on Zoom after their general meeting on Monday, September 9th. So we really value the regular communication in the best interest of all partners in our school district. The land swap between the city of Capitola and our district is complete. And this is a very arduous, but a very needed opportunity. So this allows us to facilitate the official youth-size soccer field. And while it was a labor of love with a lot of paperwork, it is now all filed with the county recorder's office. So it is official. And we'll continue to march towards ultimately putting a shovel in the ground to renovate that field. Give our kids the field they deserve out there for their sports and PE time. Thank you to everybody who accentuated U.S. Constitution and Citizenship Day yesterday. Our board passes a resolution annually on this event, and the celebration of it this year was more observable than ever. We saw students making U.S. flags, singing patriotic songs, first graders writing about what it means to be a good citizen, and in Jamie's 3rd grade class, students dialoguing with their teacher and each other about they would put in a constitution if they started one. So great example of how our teachers take a concept, apply it developmentally appropriately, and make something really engaging out of it. So thank you to everybody who did that. Finally, 2 really important events coming up are the countywide Rainbow Conference, which includes tracks for queer, trans, and allied students for middle and high school students, Rainbow Glitter Kids for elementary students, and a track for us adults, Understanding Gender for Parents, Guardians, Educators, and Adult Allies. It's at Watsonville High School on Saturday, September 28th at 9:30 to 2 p.m. We'll be taking some students along for that, similar to how we did with the Latino Role Models Conference, and we'll be involved with that. So thank you for being involved. Finally, on October 7th, we encourage all elementary students to wear blue and middle school students to rock their New Brighton purple in honor of World Day of Bullying Prevention. Thank you to everybody on the governance team who wore blue in honor, in advance honor of that night. And that's all for me.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask one quick question? How did you guys drive to the event when Enrique drove you?
We all rode the bus.
The new electric bus?
Not the electric bus.
We
We needed more seats than that.
sorry. I was looking forward to a little report on the bus.
All right, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you. Well, a few of my items will be duplicative, but not completely. I'll start with last Tuesday and Wednesday. We began our district-wide grade level writing training, and it was hosted by SoCal Elementary. with a trainer that we've worked with in the past, Lizzie, who you probably know her by first name now because she's so popular with us and she does such great work with us. We last Wednesday was able to attend a AXA legislative update regarding banning forced outing in California, which was really interesting. And I look forward to hearing more about that. Last Wednesday, we also met with the COE and Cal Hope grant partners about extending the work that they did with Santa Cruz Gardens last year and extending some of that work to all of our district schools this year, which will include Kelvin surveys, which are essentially climate surveys with staff, students, and families to inform how we partner with all of those constituency groups. In addition to parent universities and things like that. So we'll continue to build the coherence with them and their thoughtful programming through the Cal Hope grant. Last Saturday was the Latino Role Models Conference, like Scott said. These books were availed to our students free of charge. They were in English and Spanish. This was the main speaker, Jaime Cortez. And all of our students wrote thank you notes to him for speaking and also for providing free books. And then this is also a graphic novel by an author who wasn't there, but many of the students who came to the conference said, we know how to speak English and Spanish, but we don't know how to read Spanish. This is a great entry point for us. And one of the boys said, this is the way that I'm going to try to learn to read Spanish. So it was really exciting to work with them. When we came back to New Brighton after our conference was over, we worked with the students who wanted to stay and we did science experiments. And it was so fun that they want to do them every Saturday. But we can't. But it was great fun for me. I love wearing that teacher hat whenever I can. And then yesterday, like Scott said, it was Constitution Day. It was perfect because it fell on a Leaders of Learning Principles meeting day when we have facilitated learning about observing students, our focus students, and really learning about what their experience is like. And we got to see a lot of really great teaching and a lot of really great kid experiences. So it was a wonderful day to do that. Today we had our Region 5 Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant Funds recipient meeting in Hollister. And so people like me in other districts have a lot of grant restrictions and things that change over time. And they meet with us often to talk about how those things have to change over time. And sometimes they change midstream. So we really like to keep informed. And so we did a lot of learning today. The specific focus topic today was inclusion, students in special education as participants in ELAP. So it was really great to be involved with that. So while there's lots of great things going on, those are just a few for the board tonight.
Thanks so much.
Not as exciting as the two of them. So, business did wrap up on audited actuals on Friday. So that's exciting.
It's pretty exciting.
It was very exciting.
It's real important.
There's a lot of work that goes into it. And one big thing that business as well as Ed Services has been really diving into is the new independent studies. So we're trying to get those policies and a form together so that way we can start capturing the 1 day attendance, which is the new law now versus the 3 or the 5 and so forth. So that hopefully will be a big change for the district, being able to capture 1 day of attendance. If somebody's sick 1 day, we can capture that attendance. So that's super important. So we jumped on that real quick. Lori has also been helping the director of finance, working with auditors and with Carissa as well as Jessica, making sure we can get those forms up and running so that way they're at everyone's fingertips. And there's going to be some trainings this week and so forth going out. So that's about it on the business side of the house. The Main Street Library is coming along well. Carpet's fully in. Paint looks great. I don't know if you guys have been able to stop in and look at the carpet and the paint together. It looks really good. We're waiting for shelving. It's back ordered, of course, but once everything gets there, it'll be great. The temporary library is being set up. It should be close to be done if it's not already completed. So we're also excited about that, where the students are going to be able to go in at least to, check out part of their books and have that experience, especially for the ones that haven't yet. So
Very exciting. All right. Thank you for those updates. Moving on to CSEA.
How you doing, Charlotte?
Oh, yeah.
No
Sorry about that.
problem.
Dear board members and superintendent, my name is Charlotte, and I'm very happy to be here this evening representing the California School Employee Association. I currently work at SoCal Elementary as a recess coach. I've been with the district for more than 7 years. I like working at the SoCal Elementary School District because I always enjoy working with children and guiding them in making the right choices. But besides the awesome group of children we have, I am very honored to be working with my fantastic colleagues. We are a great team and I'm very proud to be part of that team. Thank you again for all your support. And of course, this will be another great year with the children and with my colleagues.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that update.
Yeah.
SEA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it.
We actually got a lot of people out today.
Again, I'm your SEA president, Brian Koch. I'm here with some of my esteemed colleagues tonight.
I'm Emma Whitwell, I'm the new Brighton rep.
Miss McMillan, Jamie McMillan, the SoCal L rep.
And thank you as always, as you always do, for making time for the SEA report. I'll keep it general for now, because as far as I can tell, SEA as a whole feels like the year is rolling along fairly smoothly at all sites. Consequently, we'd like to use this time to address a different matter. SEA wholeheartedly supports a person's right to self-identification of gender, standing firmly behind the belief that every human deserves to be recognized as they define themselves. Upon reviewing our existing contract over this past summer, we noticed that it still includes multiple instances of binary male and female pronoun use, which does not reflect our commitment to inclusivity. We take issue with this quite simply, as the use of binary gendered pronouns contradicts one of our union's core beliefs, that representation matters.
We do want to openly acknowledge and recognize that much of this old language has been passed down through previous contracts. And therefore, our collective reuse of these previously agreed upon languages from one contract to another contract to another contract is likely how these terms ended up persisting over time. To the credit of past boards and past contract negotiation teams, there are many uses of more gender inclusive terminology in the contract. However, there are still some lingering examples of binary pronoun language. We raise the issue now as a matter of internal congruence within the contract document itself, and a matter of inclusive representation whenever and wherever possible. To this end, we respectfully submit to the board our request to amend existing contract language to replace any and all remaining instances of gendered pronoun use with the more inclusive terms, such as gender neutral pronouns they, them, gender neutral possessive pronoun their, and or the term employee where appropriate.
We are excited to address this with public board. We attest that an amendment like this would not constitute substantive change to the intent, meaning, or spirit of the contract, and thus could be achieved through a memorandum of mutual agreement between SEA and the board. Furthermore, making such a change would align with both the values and beliefs of the union, but also those of the district. Working together as we have before, we can continue to co-create a contract and a district that honors, respects, and welcomes all identities with unwavering dedication. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Great to hear from so many of you. Moving on to items from trustees.
I went to the Santa Cruz Garden. Was that really just before, since our last meeting? It seems like it was a while ago. The Santa Cruz Gardens, back to school night, and it was great. I really loved in Ms. Marsh's classroom. She talked about being a warm demander and kind of the way that both the, she is the teacher and the parents play a role in being supportive, yet having, expectations and reinforcing those. And I just thought that was one example of some of the great messages that I heard that night. Yeah, so I think that's it to report.
All right. I also got to attend part of the Santa Cruz Gardens back to school night. It was lovely. And I also, because it happens to be my neighborhood, but it's open to everyone, I got to really enjoy the Chaminade Trail and the educational maps and guides that our Santa Cruz Gardens, Mr. Boyce's students have put out. And they've got on these trail boxes that the students built. And I think we all heard about this in the spring, but they're fully stocked right now. It's really, really cool. So you can go out and do the red or the blue trail of the Chaminade. And there are different stations throughout the trail with, here's information on the creek, here's information on, this part of the forest. So that's really incredible. So that's a real treat. I recommend visiting the trail if you can. I noticed that it not only was it Constitution and Citizenship Day, but it was also National Voter Registration Day. So I'm sure we're all registered to vote, but there are so many important things on the ballot, including our very own local ballot. So just wanted to give a shout out to everyone to make sure, check your registration status. And then thank you to Jen and Sandy for the opportunity again to volunteer for the Art and Wine Festival. It feels great to be able to do that for the community. And then also, it's just so fun to walk around after the volunteer shift and get to see so many of our families and staff enjoying a beautiful Sunday. So thank you. Thanks.
Well, I had the pleasure to go to SoCal and meet Hayden. And it just happened to be beginning of lunchtime. So one foot was talking to me and the other one was heading off to lunch. Well, we had a great conversation. I forgot to bring this up. She said she likes greeting people. So she greeted me when I came in to SoCal and we talked about her crocheting. And then off she went. There's more important stuff than with me. And then we visited 3 classrooms, kindergarten classroom. And it was fun to watch. It was really fun, to watch the kids doing what they're doing more than I did in kindergarten. It's amazing. They forget about that. And it was a great day to visit the school and the playground. The kids, I was looking at the playground. They got the goalie, the soccer goals out there, and kids were really going at it. Now we need a good turf out there, and it was fun. Now, I just went to the Art and Wine Festival. And I felt like a true politician. I went in there, shook hands, hello, blah, blah, took pictures, and then off on my bike, I had to go to the next thrill. So, thanks for thanking me, but I really didn't do a whole lot. And then I don't know, this is gonna be a downer. I hate to bring a downer down here, but this is part of our job being here. But I'm not sure if you read the roundup, CSBA roundup from September 18th. It's just nuts. It's school threats, students found with weapons, multiple students across California, Central Valley, alleged school threats, Stockton teen arrest after making threats against Lincoln Unified, girl 13 arrested in Riverside as threats against schools, case anxiety nationwide, and that's what it is, the whole roundup. So yeah, no wonder our kids are anxious and nervous. And just me reading this, it's like, wow, this is crazy. So there's a lot of stuff going on out there.
Thanks, Ted.
But on a lighter note.
Yeah, right. Wow, how do I follow that? I wanted to just thank the board and everybody for helping to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that's really important. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it to that event. I think that's terribly important, and I love that we were well represented there. I went to a United Way breakfast. I got some good notes that I look forward to putting into some coherent thoughts and talking to Scott about at some point. And of course, I thought the Art and Wine was a terrific success. So thank you guys very much for working that and doing all that. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I was able to attend the Art and Wine Festival. It's just, like I said, or like everyone's been saying, just a great community event. And I love our sign there where we kind of get to meet our community. All right. Thanks everybody for the updates. And just to give you a window, thank you guys again so much for coming. All right, moving on to presentations of the district-wide master's facility plan, page 32 in our docket.
Okay, And we have VJ from from Stack, yes. And then we have Jim Dupree, everyone knows Jim. So with the facilities master plan, we have actually they have been going out to site, meeting with staff and so forth and going over needs. We're going to continue that process. On Monday, we all met, including Ralph from 19.6 with CNS and tech to see what their needs were as well. We will be sending a survey out to all staff to see what needs the staff feels the sites need. And then once we get those surveys back, then we're gonna have our road shows. So then the team will be going out to speak with staff regarding, what the answers were to the survey. So then we can kind of vet all that out and really see what's truly needed at all sites. And
It's
so,
really fun going out to those staff meetings.
yeah.
Left field is a lot of stuff from left field. But it's good because, that stuff sticks. I want to answer some of the earlier board questions. Yes, I did crochet when I was like 9. I have 3 dogs.
I just had trouble pronouncing it, don't get me wrong. It was just right. It was teetering.
And the things that the board can do to help, well, that's why we're here today. So to reiterate a lot of what Allison said, we've been working on this now throughout the summer and into the fall now, gathering information with a lot of help from Steve Cartwright, from Stack, from Maddie. We did 2 3/4 days just going site to site, going in pretty much every room to see what really needs to be done. So we've got a really good handle on big picture stuff for the elementary sites and for New Brighton. We are going to kind of centralize our talk tonight on just the schools. We did just meet with CNS and IT to get what things that they could use, and all really good information. Thankfully, a lot of the things that especially IT is looking for are kind of built into some modernization things that we're looking at doing. So in a nutshell, when we pass the bond, our priorities, and VJ will have, so I like to think of this as a kind of a Las Vegas act, where I'm the opening comedian and he's Frank Sinatra. Okay, so VJ will
Jerry Lewis.
drinks and anyway, just showing how old I am by knowing that. Anyway, developing these large lists, I think the main things are really going to be fields. That was already been alluded to tonight. Safety and security always is at the top of the list, and modernization of some of our older sites, predominantly Soquel Elementary School, which still has interior cracks from the '89 earthquake, and Santa Cruz Gardens, which has a lot of interior and exterior needs. And that will be something to tackle once we pass the bond and we really start getting into the nuts and bolts. The New Brighton field is moving ahead really well. The plans are already at DSA, and 19.6 expects comments back from DSA at any time. Then we can start looking into how we want to procure this project. The board passed a lease-back possibility, and I think we're still on a plane to do that. I think Allison got hit over the head by an attorney this week, maybe with a big stack of paper.
It really is a big stack.
It is a big stack. I don't know. Yeah, I remember from 16 when we did lease-back, and the book was this thick. And of course, we all read every word. So directors locked up early. That helps us so much. They can get a job during the early spring when they don't always have big jobs like this. And it helps them sharpen their pencil a little bit, at least we hope so. So that's on the night. So at that note, I'm going to give it over to VJ. He's got a gorgeous presentation. We like to think of this as a conversation. So just jump in with questions, and that helps us and it helps you, and it just makes for a better project all the way around. So
DSA, do they move a little quicker these days?
Oh, I can't imagine that they do. No.
I don't think there is any such thing.
It kind of depends. It depends a little bit on the project. I think a field tends to be a little more standard, so that does make the approval process a little shorter. But it really depends on who you get. I mean, I wasn't intimately involved with the playground project at Soquel in the kindergarten yard, but we butted heads with a plan checker that was really and they are allowed to expand their scope almost to a point of ridiculousness. And so it really kind of does depend on who you get and what you're giving them to. But we got people with such a great experience. The DSA gets really good stuff from us. So on that note.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
The only thing I cannot do, what Jim said, I'm not Frank Sinatra, I cannot sing.
Who's metaphor?
I just need to move this forward.
George, how does the click later?
Oh,
Where's the click later?
Click later.
that's in him.
Oh, yeah, that's, make sure that.
I'm good with the space bar if you put me in front of the laptop. Yeah.
So.
I can hear.
Brief introduction for myself, I'm DJ, I'm stacked.
Hi.
Involved in management, program management, planning and design.
Oh.
And I'm here because Ralph was unable to make it. But I've been working very closely with Ralph in the school district, the board, and with Jim and the school sites.
He's gonna have it ready for you in a second.
Well, do you have any pets?
I used to have a cat that lived for 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So today what we're gonna do, I've been working with several school districts, helping them prioritize their money, basically. One of the challenges that a lot of school districts face is that your needs usually exceed 3 to 5 times your capacity to bond. But in your case, your school's in an amazing condition because your needs almost match your bonding capacity, which is, I've never seen that. Usually, school districts are 3 to 5 times. So that's really good. I think a lot of that has got to do with the fact that you got rid of a lot of portables. And that's an unusual.
There we go.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, George.
Like Jim was alluding to, I mean, we're focusing on few main big categories: safety, site safety and security, config and the admin building, field improvements across the district, ADA accessibility, those are required to do it with code issues, modernization and roof repairs, and then drop off improvements in the parking and drop off areas. The next few slides, we're just going to explain to you how we're allocating money across your sites. We have a 3-step process. We look at an equity and facility condition analysis. Basically, what we do is we look at multiple factors such as the age of your campus, the location, the size of your campus. Those are, it's not always the school districts use this method, but we're doing it just so that you can get a better understanding of where your facilities are, and then compare it with your actual need to see if it's out of balance, basically. And then we allocate the projects across school sites. So this, it's illegible right now, but if you look at the color, it's like a heat map. 1 through 5, 1 is excellent, 5 is critical. In general, just go over here. This is the equity-based index that we used. Area, age factor, location, when was it last modernized, how many portables you have. And so you can see this is generally in the green. What's red out here is just the age factor, but it's just one criteria. And then you look at your facility condition index, such as your accessibility, security, the way the campus flows, your building systems, building envelope, and there you're seeing a lot of color. So we use that, we basically aggregate that and use that to distribute the money. So this is just one method. It's not the, this slide will show you. So you have your estimated need, which is what we did, assessing your sites by walking the sites, looking at your as-bills. So you have a need of 86 million. And then this is the allocation, the equity-based allocation that we did. You can see how close we are to your actual needs. This is just a check and balance, just make sure that we're on the right path. So this is your available funding. You're on the developer bond, hopefully it passes, 73 million. You have 5 million in state matching funds. So total is 78 million. Now, the one thing that we do, we're encouraging school districts to do, don't look at the 73 million or 78 million as if it's available today. Because your buying power in 3 years is going to be less. So work it backwards. So one of the things that we found is the most optimal delivery cycle is a 3-year cycle. But that's where you get your most bang for your buck. Your 78 million, you'll see it here. It's almost like developing a net present value. It's not exactly that, but it is somewhat in that, scale.
And the district has been working with 19.6 and with Stacked. We have kind of led to a more aggressive style of engaging in construction. A lot for this reason, and we learned that, and it was done well in the last bond where we hit the ground running. I mean, that's why it's so nice to have this master plan. It'll be complete shortly after the election, and we can really go to work very quickly. So we have encouraged Stacked and 19.6 to really look at a 3-year plan to spend the money and get things done.
You'll get
And it's
a
easier
lot
around
more
the
done
kids
because,
and-
school districts, they face this problem. You have some dollars, you plan for it, and then you're not able to accomplish everything that you set out to do.
Is that primarily because of the inflation, the cost of goods
Exactly.
over 3 years? We're gonna lose 12 to 14% of the money?
Exactly. Escalation right now is 5% for the next 2 years, and then 4.5. It'll change, I mean, but that's what it's projected to be for the next 5 years. So we want to just squeeze everything as fast as possible. So next year, basically 2025, and I'll show it to you in the next slide. A lot of it will be. So next year we plan to spend 15 million, but that will be mostly fields, because that's an easy project to get through. I don't want to say easy, but it's easier to get through DSA with those. And then the bulk of the money will be spent here and here in 26 and 27. So this year, it'll give us enough time to go through DSA for all the projects, and then get it approved and then go into construction cycle of 26 and 27.
Is there any way to lay the money out, buy the materials now, maybe store it for?
It's a possibility.
$12 million sounds like a lot of money or $8 to $10 million sounds like a lot of
So
money
I
to lose over
think
3
when we
years.
get into the fields, I think we have opportunity there. We talked about at one point in time, bundling all of our fields into one project. The one, it makes it really very appealing to a large contractor that they'd have all this work.
Right.
And if they can handle the work, if they have the staff to keep it going. New Brighton's kind of on a glide plane right now, they're going. And so it would really slow that project down to try to wrap the other 3, because we haven't even thought about plans yet. But we can bundle the other 3, and then you can go out and through CMAS can buy your turf, and a lot of the things you need, you can buy that right up front. And so that'll help save money. But I think a lot of it is just the time that it takes to develop the plans, to get it through DSA, modernization plans and things like that. Take some time, and unfortunately prices.
And if you're doing it like a lease back, once the plans are developed, it's in DSA, you know what systems you want to use. So the contractor, the lease back contractor can go and make the purchases in advance. But I don't think we should do any purchases until drawings are done and we know what systems we're using. So right now, it's conservative. We've only allocated 66 million in projects. There's still 12 million. Like Jim said, that we met with Child Nutrition Services and we met with communications. So we haven't estimated that yet, but it'll increase a little more than 66.
Is that on Monday? You don't have those numbers.
Okay, so that's SoCal, it's $21 million allocated as part of this bond. So we're gonna be modernizing the historic building. The building's large, so it's gonna be done over 2 years, so we're gonna phase it. Otherwise, you won't have kids in classrooms. Of course, the fields, the roof repairs, ADA, we need an ADA ramp in the front. Make it accessible. And reconfiguring the office admin just for increased security so that you have better control of who's coming in and out of the campus. And that's across all the schools.
Just a quick question.
Good.
How do you space it out? Like if you're doing it in phases, while kids are in class, I imagine we're not just going to do this during the summers.
That's a great question.
A lot of it in the summer.
A lot of it in the
And then,
summer.
of course, we're trying to stay away from interim housing.
That's what I was going to say. Do we need pods or do we need something for kids in classrooms? And I mean,
We're trying, it'd be the last resort.
You don't want to do interim housing. Some cost is a word that you don't want to use. It's just lost money.
right.
Yeah.
There's nothing good about declining enrollment. Except
Yeah.
you do have classrooms that are being used for, tell me with the word, Scott, by 1 or 2 people. I have a word, but I'm not gonna say it.
Spaces where there might normally be 3 or 4 people, individuals have.
Yeah,
rooms.
somebody gets, a certain person gets a classroom. So we're hoping that we can, by playing chess with classrooms, we can find space for that one person, move a whole classroom to that classroom, and then redo that classroom. And hopefully we can, I looked at this year's calendars already, and it looks like most of the modernization takes place in Santa Cruz Gardens and at Soquel Elementary School. And if we were to start today, each school has 3 classrooms that are not being used for groups of students. So that would help us. It's a challenging thing. It's going to be really hard on staff because there's going to be moving parts and things. If we need to do more than that and we don't want to do interim housing, then you got to get creative. You've got to think, okay, can we put the music room on the stage and use the music, things like that. We're getting a little ahead, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves about thinking about that. However, it's never a bad time to start thinking about that, to have that thought in your head that it's going to be, and that's where we come in with a lot of legwork with staff, letting them know that this is not easy, it's messy, it's noisy. At Santa Cruz Gardens, there's pods of rooms, 4, but you can't just do 3, because that 4th classroom would be impossible. They wouldn't be able to hear a thing. So we got to find where to put those kids while we redo that building, and then move kids in and do another building and phase it throughout. It's challenging.
Yeah, obviously kids' safety is #1 during this time, but I was also curious, $20 million, what is the modernization process? Is it electrical, plumbing, all the above? Are you actually changing infrastructure?
Yeah.
It could be all the way down to stud.
Wow.
In some cases.
That's huge.
Soquel.
Okay, yeah, I noticed the $20 million price tag on that. That's why I'm trying to figure out what's.
So, and like I say, when we're talking, all of the schools need modernization, but for bigger modernization, it's going to be those, and none of the schools are up to date on what they need for electrical. So the school district with what they've had over time has done a lot of raceways, things like this that you see on the walls, and they're not, stuff that just gets stuck on the outside of the walls.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And not only that, but the walls at Soquel themselves need to be replaced, because like I said, they have cracks and they're uneven and they're peeling and things like that. So I think we haven't quite gotten down to that, that small of a detail yet. If we don't have to tear walls apart, we won't, but it might be, let's take it back and do it right.
Yeah, appreciate you guys bearing with me.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It's me thinking, I love it.
Yeah, and I know we're just in the initial stages. I'm just trying to get a grasp.
And what are some of the things to get really excited about? Not that the infrastructure isn't great and new walls, all of this is very, very important, right? But knowing for thinking ahead for students and staff, having some hard times, but what am I gonna get excited about?
Yeah, when the teacher goes back in their new room, they say, well, let's do, I think you're gonna get much better lighting, you're gonna get much more level floors, you're gonna have, the teacher's gonna have a much better workstation with plugs and internet at their service in multiple places, just like our new rooms, where a teacher can set up their desk in 3 of the 4 corners of the room because they've got the power and the infrastructure built into the building to be able to do that. So that's what we want our 100-year-old classrooms to be like, right? So the teachers have the option to plugs in the floor, so they can roll out a cart and plug something in, and they're not running extension cords and tripping all over the place. Those are the kind of upgrades that they should be. When they go back into their own rooms, it's going to be like they're going into one of the new rooms.
Nice.
Newer rooms. They're not as new as they were when I was here the last time. But
And on Monday with the communications team, we discussed potentially having a sound system so that teachers have a little mic, so they don't have to shout across,
yeah,
you know.
that's pretty standard anymore. You know, the
Yeah.
hardest thing about those is getting teachers to use them, but once they start,
Yeah,
they can talk like this all day long.
Yeah.
And everybody can hear.
right.
Yeah.
And they're not as tired at the end of the day, amazingly enough.
Yeah.
So things like that. That's what they have to look forward to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah.
So
Can't
I
wait
have
to
a-
see it afterwards.
I have a question, it's probably gonna be with each school about the security fencing. I mean, what in SoCal, what is this gonna solve? Because there's other ways to get it. I don't think, is SoCal totally closed off? I'm trying to remember. I didn't get a chance to go out and look
No.
at the school, but I,
No, there's
What-
that back.
what-
There's a couple openings and that's the goal, as VJ said, with all the sites, is to finally round all those other openings off and have one way in. So it's easily managed.
And in SoCal, we have to reconfigure the admin area
Mhm.
quite a bit, actually. So
Yeah,
that you
'cause
have,
as you, at SoCal, when you walk in the front door, it's a straight shot past
Right,
and you're in the school. No matter what you're up to, it needs to be a little more in.
Yeah.
That's why we hire guys like this to figure out how it looks, and same with New Brighton Middle School. It was a beautiful design at the time. But a UPS guy has to actually enter the campus to be able to drop off a box. And we want everybody to be controlled prior to being on campus. So those are definitely high on the list things to do. And yeah, it's challenging to fence off schools without putting chain link around the whole darn thing. But there are ways and there are places where you can definitely make big improvements to at least, slow somebody.
so then during the school day, the fencing's gonna be closed. And then somebody who's in the parking lot would have to go through the admin,
exactly.
Right.
because I know that's fenced off and they can't get over there.
That's the goal, is to
Okay.
make every non-staff member or student have to enter through the office.
And this school.
Good idea.
It's right almost at the edge of the road. It's-
Yeah.
Actually, the road's coming towards the school.
Yes.
Shout out to office staff, man.
Yeah.
So Main Street again, similar, we do new turf. AD upgrades, new amphitheater. And shade structure. Replacing windows. That'll be key because it'll improve, the air conditioning. If you have windows that are weak and you have an air conditioning system, it doesn't work. So it'll have-
Main Street is the only school that doesn't have dual pane windows.
They run out of money?
There are dual pane windows in Santa Cruz Gardens. There's some non-ones too,
Right.
but Main Street is the only one that has single pane windows.
And that'll be addressed in the,
Yes, absolutely. And that could be a summer job.
Yeah.
So that has little impact on the school.
Cool.
The development of the amphitheater is an
Yeah.
exciting project.
Yeah.
That grassy gopher ridden area has, we tried for years to set up chairs for graduation. It never gets, and that's the only time they'd use it. It's just, bad use of water. If it were more of a style like Santa Cruz Gardens has, then it would be used quite often for small presentations, for small groups, get outside, those kinds of things. So I think that's an exciting project for Main Street. And shade over where they eat lunch. That's a dire need, what I heard.
Something I don't see on here is the kitchen. Main Street just has like a warmer
Yeah,
and it really restricts their menu options.
It
Is
really
that
does.
something that you're considering, is giving them a more workable kitchen where they can actually make food there?
it is. Like we mentioned, we met with
Amanda.
Amanda, thank you. We met with Amanda on Monday. And she has some thoughts. Steve Cartwright was there. Steve knows really up to date and and she had certain requests. They don't have a 3-compartment sink, which is kind of like code, those kinds of things, definitely storage. And we have ways to add on and move and stuff like that to make that a much more, because right now it's like a small bedroom. I mean, it's like 8 by 10, it's so small.
Really is.
So yes, that, as we keep working through, we have an appointment with Amanda to tour SoCal and Main Street set up for early October. And that'll help us get.
Yeah.
So that's still something we can fit on the projects
Right.
list,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that little 10 million extra line that we saw about 3 slides back, yeah, that number will go lower.
Yeah.
We're
That's
being,
okay.
we're being very conservative, we're not just throwing, projects at the money right now.
Yeah,
Just as you just build it to, then once you
Yeah.
have the bond passed, then we'll present you the final plan.
And SoCal's kitchen is very out of date, very strangely designed, and could use some attention as well.
Gardens, again, organizing all the buildings, replacing the roof, synthetic fields, new parking lot, staff parking lot, which is this area.
The school has never really had a fire lane per se to get to the back. And honestly not sure through other projects how we avoided it. So we're going to, with the parking lot and the bill, that'll address anything that the fire department or BSA fire has anything to say about that. Pretty much every building here needs to be modernized.
So this might be some old information and maybe I just missed something, but I thought we were considering using some of that land, which is considerable in the back for like workforce housing or something along those lines. Obviously, this plan precludes that. Is that what we're saying? So that workforce housing's off the table for this and or
I'll jump on that.
Yeah.
Scott, throw something at me. Workforce housing is definitely on the table. And there is room, even with this design for 16 units,
Yes.
for 16 units.
Same as Soledad.
Yeah,
and that would be in the like in that back corner area? Oh, okay. So and then the parking could address the housing too. Yeah, right. Up there, right?
We have
Yeah.
options. Yep.
yeah, there are options. There are options. It's a matter of moving people at certain times of day. But there is room and it can, I cautiously optimistic.
Okay. And then the parking would obviously address anybody that would be living there.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's not like we're trying to avoid that conversation. I think tonight's focus is on the sites.
Sure, the sites are
when-
the priority.
Yeah, and when we come back, I think we're tentatively scheduled for the November 20th for you guys to vote on the master plan, then all that information will be on this.
Last question on this, and I'm sorry. Is there anything in the budget that addresses the workforce housing with these numbers that you put out right now?
No, but that's the conservative plan. So we've got 66 million allocated right now. We've got child nutrition services and IT to be incorporated in the cost estimate. We'll see what we're left with. I think maybe in the 8 to 10 million range. And then that's a decision that the district has to make, whether you want to allocate that towards workforce housing.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked, oh, sorry. I was just saying, I'm glad you asked the question though, because it looking at this and knowing how small the gardens is and what our staffing numbers are, it doesn't quite connect having the current parking lot and the new one. I appreciate addressing the fire lane though, because I think that has kind of, that's something I think we had the conversation back in 2016
Just wait for the other shoe to
as well. So I think it was good to bring it up and
We need 100 or 200 parking spots.
well, and right, we certainly hope we can use our space for the best possible uses, but also knowing that there can be some
So-
flexibility in
Yeah,
the
so
future.
schematic. So, I always applaud 19.6 for being the ones that have no fear in putting a pen to a piece of paper and saying, we want to do this, what do we, and you go like, hey, do this. And that gets you started, then you can say yes or no, or maybe, or this and not that. So they've said, what about this? And now we have ample opportunity to say yay or nay or some or none or whatever. A lot of this parking would address workforce housing, I believe.
So before you switch, I'm wondering about, that does answer my question. When I saw all this parking, I thought, wow, what do we need all that parking in Santa Cruz Gardens for? Especially since it's, one of our schools that has the most declining enrollment, our lowest number.
Well, the other part was also, you're building a synthetic field, community use, you need parking
Okay.
potentially.
So, something that is catching my eye is, so for example, any of the teachers, as they walk their students out to the field, are going to be crossing the parking lot, thinking about cars. I'm just wondering perhaps that they should be flipped, that the field should be closest to the school
Yeah,
and the parking should be farthest away.
that's a good point.
Also visually, that's way more pleasant to students.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
agree.
Oh, thank Pete.
I do too. Nice.
And then
Like
is
that below there.
do we have a number that we're working for with parking? If we can err on the side of more land, to me, that feels more kid-friendly, more school-friendly.
Yeah.
So for me to know how many parking spots do we need? Even if we go with the workforce housing, as opposed to let's not err on the side of adding tons of parking
So
when,
if workforce housing is 16 units, don't quote me on this, but it could be like 25 parking stalls.
yeah.
So. yeah,
And we're gonna have that number where we know this many units requires this many
Absolutely,
before we approve.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think going along along those lines, just obviously keeping in mind the school's emphasis on
Yes,
gardening and
yes.
outdoor learning spaces. I know all of our
You
campuses
get-
have great outdoor learning spaces, but making sure
We
we don't
dealt-
limit.
We dealt with it a little bit at New Brighton in a challenging, and a budget issue too, a little bit, with a corner closer to the gym area that we kind of just didn't want to put turf because it's expensive to put turf. But if it's not turf, then what is it? Is it grass, which doesn't grow and doesn't get maintained or is hard to maintain with the staffing that the maintenance department has? And so if you just don't want a lot of dirt, is what I'm saying. You wanna do something in between. I think in looking at this now with your input, it looks like overkill, absolutely. I think, I do worry about putting stuff way out here. Because to get your boy, it's an arduous journey. So maybe only this, we figure it out, because we cut it in half. I'm just concerned about putting stuff way out here. I feel like you're a mile away from where you're entering the campus.
Or maybe just along the left side.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's okay.
yeah.
I mean,
But once again,
when people are gonna drive to the field, they're just gonna drive to the field. I mean, they're in a car. It's not like we're asking them to park there and hike all the way up there. And any housing, that parking lot in the back would be better for any housing anyways, because we don't want those people around the kids.
Yeah.
We want to separate, and I feel like that field is also kind of a good separator between that housing and our children.
And the field can be smaller too. This is a full size field.
Right.
Elementary school be smaller.
Right.
Smaller.
They'll fall through the floor.
No,
And the existing parking is going to remain,
of course,
so there is parking,
exactly.
people don't have to go all the way to the back.
And is there really a need for more parking as is, or is it really the future plan?
At a normal day, they're pretty full.
I went there today in the middle of the day and I had to park on the little dirt part out to the outside.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
You'd be surprised for such a small school. that
Yeah,
parking lot
so
fills up.
for any visitor, if there's something going on with parents, it's really hard. They're parking in the neighborhoods.
Yep.
I think staff pretty much takes up the parking they have. So yeah, there is a need. And this was always in this little part, which is kind of already here. Has always meant to be led to, I think in a really early plan back in early 2000s, this was gonna be a more parking and maybe even like a blacktop for kids. So there's always talk, but I think got pushed this way because we're trying to save some space for future workforce housing. But there will be lots of options on where to put workforce housing and where it'll fit. And there's options on the numbers of how many units too. That's none of that is set in stone.
And then I'm wondering about, you spoke about Santa Cruz Gardens as the, one of the schools that, on the interior of the buildings had kind of the most need. I was wondering if you could talk more about that. It's a 5 on the heat map.
Yeah, it's definitely a 5.
Yeah, so
I
think it's from the same scale as SoCal, where you really have to go back in most cases back to the studs. And then replacing the windows, so it'll be again the same thing. New board sheeting, carpeting, flooring. And
really bad ceilings.
electrical, all the.
Ceilings that cannot be repaired. They're those little funky tiles that clip into each other, and then over years where the roof has leaked, so the ceilings need to be all updated. Better infrastructure for technology and electricity and plumbing. All new casework. The casework up there's been painted so many times, it's just looks really, really bad, so they deserve casework that matches.
When was that school built?
64.
None of us.
I think,
64.
I think
60.
that's when the neighborhood basically started, so I think they opened in
Impressed
64.
If that's the case, nice.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Well, I used to own a house that was built at the exact same time. My first house in the neighborhood was,
All
yeah.
right.
So.
Yes, 64.
There you go.
And what's the time frame? Like, how long does it take to tear something down to the studs and build it back up however you want?
So it'll be sort of similar to SoCal. That we may have to do this in phases, or if, I don't know, are all the classrooms occupied?
No.
There are a handful of.
So a little more flexibility with Santa Cruz Gardens than SoCal. Where we can move kids around a bit.
And is this, so what's the time, like, does it take 3 months to tear a building down to the studs and build it back up? Does it take 6 months? Does it take a year?
We have to do this as a summer program.
That's why I'm asking.
I think, like to do one whole building to front, like this one, this is 40 wing.
Exactly right.
This is a tough one. This one's really, it's got old sliding glass doors that haven't ever, I started working here in 2002 and they've never opened. So there's a lot, there's crazy stuff that needs to go on here. I would say that's like, and don't, once again, I love that term, don't quote me. I'm thinking that's at least a 3-month project to get that building, to get in there, all the pre-construction stuff with the fencing and the access for contractors and stuff, and then the phasing of getting in there and ripping and tearing and then bringing in the trades to come back. I'm thinking 3 months.
So unlike a traditional bid build process, we're going through a lease process. So that really helps because all the pre-planning is done maybe 5-6 months in advance. So the contractor could potentially be procuring a lot of the materials and being ready. So when school's out the next day, you start.
Yeah.
In these phases, do they do all the fields at one, like, if we're gonna, obviously, the first plan is to do all the fields. Do they do all the fields at the same time, or are they gonna do this field, then this field, then this field, then this field?
It's yet to be determined. It's a really good question. The way I would see it being done is to make all 3 fields one project.
That would happen at the same time.
I don't think so. I think you get one contractor and they get in. So let's say, just as an example, let's say a field is done in 4 major steps. So a crew goes into Santa Cruz Gardens and they do step 1. And then when they're done, they go to Main Street and they start step 1 over there. And then a new crew comes in and starts doing step 2.
Okay.
Once again, contractors love that. They love to keep people working. They love to not have to be moving around. They love to not have to completely disengage and leave and come back in a certain amount of time. They just want to keep working until it's done. So that's how I see it. A contractor, once again, you with leaseback, you interview these contractors. Right. And they'll have a look at the plans and they'll say, no, we don't want to do it like that. We want to really throw manpower at it and tack all 3 of them at the same time. And if the district interview committee decides that that's the way to go, then that's what we would do. Exactly. But that's another plus of leaseback. You get to not only find out their price, but you get to find out their ability, that staffing, and how they can tackle big projects.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
And I know we talked a lot about the parking lot and how that's gonna change in the next steps, but I just love the garden emphasis at Santa Cruz Gardens. So I'm just wondering that, I'm just hoping that we really keep in mind open space, room for students to create more with that garden plan of how maybe the parking lot has some different elements, or there's room for the kids to still continue their sage projects.
In our process of developing this master planning list, every school, you're seeing like a 1 through 8 list. Every school has a 1 through 30 list, right? So I'm a big fan of gardens too. And I always wanted to do rainwater catchment at Santa Cruz Gardens, especially because of the location of their garden. It would be so easy. That's on the list already.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
Nice.
Just improvements of the garden that,
Yeah.
I mean, new fencing,
Yeah.
a better outside teaching space with water and power and
Yeah.
internet and things like that. That's just essential anymore.
Yeah. Greenhouse.
And not just at the garden, but I think everybody, I mean, they all need that kind of thing. So yes, absolutely. Those things are on the,
Great.
we just didn't want to get caught up in the minutia too much tonight. There'll be time for that.
De La Viega has a great outdoor space that the teachers use. Have you been to De La Viega?
Yes, I have.
They have a great outdoor space.
Yeah, I got to do some stuff through Life Lab at UCSC. Did some work with them and toured a lot of the wonderful gardens we haven't seen. If you don't get excited about gardens after doing that for a few days, you just I don't know, eat fast food all the time. But there are some beautiful gardens out there.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
In the modernization, one of the other 5s was indoor air quality. Is that part of the modernizing the building?
Yeah, so anytime we're replacing all the finishing inside,
Yeah.
that's indoor air quality, it improves it.
Okay. And then how much were the sort of the student enrollment taken into account in the, because, you know, you mentioned Santa Cruz Gardens, it's by far the, you know, the smallest number of enrolled students. So how did that impact decisions about, you know, allocating budget?
So the heat map is still a work in progress.
Okay.
So we haven't done the capacity study yet across all the campuses, but that'll be the next step. We have to incorporate that.
Okay.
Right, have you done it?
Yeah.
Why
No,
not?
not in
Shall I
person.
move to the next?
We've already spent all our money, we're skipping it.
So the big item that's in DSA, that's the field.
Yep.
Same thing again, we're doing AD upgrades, reconfiguring the admin, repairing all the breezeways. Between all the buildings, all everything that's in blue.
All the covered walkways.
That's in just repair.
Yeah.
Yeah. We already have the money for the field.
Yes.
They have the money for the
Yes,
field,
yes.
it's
Right.
It's
Okay.
moving.
Yeah.
But we thought of that, I mean, it would be weird to make a master plan and not mention the field.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I mean,
I'm curious why this was part of this plan. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I mean, it's a big
Well,
deal,
if
you know,
if you
and
didn't put it, you would be asking us for it.
What's going on with the field?
field in the master plan, let's put the money in the master plan too, because it's all ultimately gonna come out of Allison's purse, so. I can see she was still
It's the district purse.
She keeps the purses very separate.
Yes, thank you.
We have in the 40 wing, we have some amazing opportunities with some massively underused outside space.
Oh, yeah.
Excited about turning this outside space, changing this wall in the library and making this outside space accessible to the library only. These are all science classrooms that surround this, so make this an area where they can blow stuff up, whatever they do in junior high and science, I don't know. But, or, break rocks or whatever, something outside. So that's a really exciting opportunities we have there. And then, of course, we talked about the office needing to be reconfigured, so it's safer for students to stay.
And the science building, Building J.
Oh, Building J, everybody, yeah, Building J. I take responsibility for Building J. So, and that would be a good kickoff project too, Building J.
Yeah.
What is the plan for The portable, like where Steve is now.
Well, it's a, Steve's
soccer
easy,
field.
Yeah,
right? Steve-
and all the others, Steve and the stuff.
Yeah, there's some short-term options. I don't know how much into the minutia you wanna get. Nothing has been decided. Steve, those two buildings and those Connex boxes
Mhm.
have to move before we start the field.
Right.
So, I mention it every time I have a chance to say, but there are a couple of moving parts that have recently happened that might help us with that.
Okay.
And then ultimately,
Right.
we do need a permanent spot for maintenance, transportation and operations. I don't see transportation moving from here because of the infrastructure they have for the electric bus and those kinds of things. But maintenance does need a home. Everybody deserves, something slightly more permanent.
Yeah.
Right, any,
It's just something that we have to figure out, like,
Something we have to
yeah,
figure out.
those portables have to go,
Right.
obviously,
Yeah.
and Steve needs a home. We do think we can, like, scale down a lot of what is in there, because things collect over time.
We've
But,
done
yeah.
some research on, you guys would have to surplus a lot of stuff, because we have a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And we looked into liquidators who would come in and help sell it. After it's been, not as easy as it sounds, a lot of rules and selling stuff that used to belong to the school district. Allison is agreeing with me. But we do need to, one of the first things we have to do is reduce the amount of stuff we have. So that we can, get things moved. And,
And I fully recognize the DO is not on this. We're focusing on our
Mhm.
schools right now, but also thinking. Is there anything master plan-y that had to happen around the maintenance department?
Well,
It sounds like, I mean, obviously you guys were thinking about it and it's not in front of us right now. It's a wonder.
Sure,
Yeah.
I mean, and down the road, if we are able to accomplish getting the district office moved over to the Jade Street area, then that frees up this building, and so. All of those dominoes could still fall into effect, but, we had talked about that move earlier, but wanted to prioritize the money, as you said, for sites and such. That's why we leased the building at Opal Cliffs to city of Capitola, so. After whatever that is, December of 2025, then hopefully some of these projects are off the ground and we can look at the possibility of that move from us to there and maintenance to there.
and this is a perfect location for maintenance. It's centrally located, but it's not on a site. So you don't have maintenance trucks driving in and out of the school site. Plenty big, you can get not just a small maintenance department, but other people can continue to use that. This space can continue to be used. So
It's that interim period that will be tricky.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
they may just have to run it out of there. John and what's the other, I don't know, the other maintenance guy.
Kian.
They may just have to run the department out of their trucks for a while. So.
What does repair the breezeway mean?
Covered walkways. A lot of the
But
covered
they are
walkways-
covered, so like fix the roof of the covered rock?
Yeah, if you're the main one that runs the length of New Brighton, it's full of cracks. A few years ago, we had one whole section fall. And we had to, on an emergency, bring in a contractor to pull it all down and re-stucco it. There's a ton of weight on them. If you look up on top, there's 8, 10, 12, 15 big heavy pipes, many of which have been abandoned. That need to be looked at to see if they can be removed. It would be safer to have them gone and it would look a lot better. So all of those things kind of be done. And one thing we didn't touch on at all is exterior modernization. New Brighton definitely needs exterior modernization. The siding is in really bad shape. We were walking it and there was a bubble on the wall and I pushed, and this is middle of summer, I pushed it and water just came pouring out of it, from up between the wall and the paint. So we either decide we have to repair the siding or tear it down and stucco, but they all need paint. And the last time New Brighton Middle School was painted, I painted. By myself.
Bring us some rollers. We'll.
That's right. I kind of used you about 15 years ago. So, so there's a lot of, New Brighton needs a lot of exterior modernization. And we'll have to figure out, we don't know how far to go with that yet. A lot of information.
Yeah.
And is that moving the library?
We won't move the line, no.
It's just
They'll stay
updating
there,
that.
we'll just, the back wall will have to have some sort of, doors or something installed so kids can easily get to the new exterior area. And then probably refinishing a lot of the concrete back there, providing shade and tables and things like that. It would literally double the size of the library.
Oh,
Yeah, just by making outside accessible.
oh, very cool.
Right now, it's only accessible from the
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
And it's so sketchy back in
Yeah.
height, they don't allow anybody to go back there.
Oh,
So it
very
just,
cool.
you know, it's just not a,
It's a gem.
it has, it's a little spot that could really. be-
Diamond in the rough.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, look really cool.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. That's it.
Yeah. Now we just need the money.
Oh,
That's all.
Gotta pass the buck.
Yeah.
Just a few minutes.
I just want to know more about the process. So I love that you said there's a conversation. I love all the back and forth. You've already gotten administrative feedback. Now you're moving to teachers. Is that right?
Yeah, we've had a
So
little bit of administrative feedback,
And went to the site.
and we visited all the sites. We are definitely visiting, staff and getting their input. Received a kind of a beginning of a staff survey so that they can do some early feedback before we show up. And when you have these types of things, you get a look, you know, a lot of people, you get everything from my doorstop doesn't work to big things, you know, and quite often you get something that you hadn't thought of. And it's great, and that's what you want, right? You want to, don't want to, now's not the time to skip stuff. So that's where the process is going. Once we have our road shows and we have all the staff, VJ and Ralph and Steve and myself and Allison, that's been our core team so far. We'll continue to compile this into something that we can present as a completed master plan.
And then in terms of like community or family input, when are you getting that?
So, once we were a little more firm on the exact projects we were doing, last time we did this, we had community outreach meetings at all of the schools multiple times. And so I can't imagine we wouldn't do that again. What do you call the thing that you do, your big community meeting?
We used to call it the forum. We're making some changes to
Okay,
that.
well,
But I think we can sync up on some of the stuff.
Yeah, so
Yep.
we were at the forum last time.
Yeah.
And are already answering questions way early on about things. So we go to home and school, we met with all the home and school clubs. I met with home and school clubs multiple times throughout the last one and more than willing to do it again. I think it's just a fabulous way. People just want to know, you know, so that's where we'll keep going with community input, parent input, and just making ourselves available to answer those questions whenever. You know, I have a district email so people it'll get out there soon. If they don't already have it, they'll have it soon, I'm sure. Just don't give them my cell phone if you can help us. So, yeah, that's the process. And it's not just up until the bond and we're, okay, these are the projects. No, you keep going, you keep giving updates. When we pass the bond and we start getting into construction, you guys will start seeing me more and more. I'll be here a lot giving updates on where we are with construction and things and how things are going and how the budget's hitting and stuff like that.
And the idea is to keep this master plan not static. It's a living document.
Right.
So keep updating it. It doesn't stop after the bond's passed. It'll continue as the projects get built. We will keep updating the master plan, tweaking it. Maybe 2 years down the line, you don't want to do a project. There's something else that's more important. So the idea is to keep this as a living document.
Are there any hard deadlines where we do decide on certain things
Yeah,
that you're aiming for?
I mean, because as we get into next year, it's the planning phase, the design phase, and you want to get into DSA, get the approval, so in 2026, you can start building. So.
But so basically all of 24 is still getting input,
25. Yeah, 24 is
deciding,
getting input, yes.
deciding,
Design.
meeting with all those people,
Exactly.
changing plans. And then it's,
I don't think I think the district is, to use a back to Vegas for bet to come a little bit by approving a master plan prior to a bond passing. I mean, it's great to have all this information, but heaven forbid the bond doesn't pass. And we're gonna build the field and, you know, there we are. So you don't want to really get into big development of plans for fields quite yet. But I'm thinking on November 6th, there may be some guys sharpening some pencils and, and getting going on drawing fields and getting things going to DSA.
And for the rest of the projects, I think you can easily wait till January, before
Yeah.
start working.
And the good news is, Maddie, 19.6, Ralph LaRue, BJ have done this so many times. They work with almost every district in the area. They know the contractors, they know the folks, they've done it all before. We sat down with CNS and IT the other day with no agenda. And Ralph basically took over and he asked exactly to each one of them exactly the right question. Things like, how many WAPs do you need, George? It's like, I never thought, so to have someone who just, this is pretty much all they do. They don't draw houses, they do schools. And so we're in good hands. I'm very optimistic that things will go well again.
Great. Any other questions or? Thank you so much for that thorough presentation. We love these updates and good things are happening.
Are you gonna cap on tonight? Do I need to stay?
Not tonight.
Oh, shucks. All right.
I'm not in it actual, so you can stay for that.
Stunned silence.
Yeah.
What does it happen?
Gee, look at the time. You gotta do a dish.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Moving on to 5B, discussion regarding updates on the instructional teams. Okay, well, thank you. So this is an item that I think I talk about all the time, but kind of discreetly. And so I think I was thinking it was important to put this on our board docket every single year so that the board would know some of those unseen things that are happening across our district. And one of them is our instructional teams work. So like the board memo talked about, having instructional teams are critical to the success of a district. Having one person in the seat of the ed services department isn't going to create a lot of positive change because I have a single perspective. I have my own unconscious biases. I have all of those kinds of things that can really inhibit a school district from growing in positive ways. So in this district, like many others, we have an instructional team structure built to satisfy the interests of short-term tasks and long-term tasks. So we can see like a short-term need, like, we need to revise our report card. We need a team that will take a look at the report card and revise that report card. And it's a finite task and we know when we need to have it done and it's something like that. We have long-term teams that work together over multiple years. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but this is not a presentation. I'm happy to do a presentation. It's just to kind of give you a sweeping overview. But we do have in this district multiple instructional teams that work on projects all of the time, whether they're long-term or short-term. One of the smallest, but probably teams that makes the biggest difference is a site level, grade level, or subject matter team. Because those teams meet on a daily basis. They meet informally on a daily basis, but they meet formally a couple of times a month to talk about the students that are in their grade, in their classes at their schools. And they talk about like, what are the instructional practices that are working with these students? How are the students doing? What do we need to change? What kinds of things can we share with each other and build capacity around? And so those are teams that are, they're familiar with each other and they work well together. We've expanded those site level, grade level teams to district grade level teams. And we built into our Friday schedule, our early release schedule, a time when those teams across the district can meet and they can say, I'm a third grade teacher at this school. And these are some of the things that I find to be engaging with my students. I want to share those with my colleagues, or these are lessons I do, or these are books that I like as resources, and they can share that information. So we've built in this school year a calendar where they can do that over and over and over again. They can decide where they're going to meet,
which one is going to facilitate which meeting, what they're going to talk about when they meet together, and then they share those with me, and the principals see those too, so that we can support the work of those teams. So those are pretty strongly structured teams from the site level to district-wide level. There are other teams that are not as highly structured as that. So there are teams, as an example, like our ELD instructional team. They have meetings every week, but they really self-lead. So they look at the students that they have, they're focused on English language development, they're looking at practices across the district. And when they see trends in data, or they see themes in data, or they see new training that come up, they meet together and they talk about what those things are that they're seeing, and they make adjustments based on the things that they're seeing. So those aren't overseen by any administrator. They're really kind of a grassroots effort and a really timely effort to support EL students. We have in this district some structured teams that are organized by the site administrator, and that would be our leadership teams. So our leadership teams at the site level usually are comprised of one member from each grade level as a representative to talk about, like, what are the happenings of not just my classroom, but of our site in general. Like, what are the things that we're seeing? So now is a really prime time to talk about, like, the strength of that leadership team, because they're writing their school plans for student achievement. So that leadership team has a lot to talk about. They're looking at data of students. They're looking at, you know, where are our strengths? Where do we need to grow? What are the actions that we can commit to as a school organization or a team to be able to address those areas of need or growth that are present in the information that we're looking at about our students. So at the site level, there's a lot of things that are happening from the district perspective. We have a lot of work to do on an ongoing basis with things like curriculum. So we've talked to the board a number of times about the need for social studies curriculum. And the fact of the matter is that it takes a really strong instructional team to continue to look at curriculum that is a good fit for our district, that is not biased, it's not racially, you know, kind of charged, but satisfies the interest of the language that we use, the humanity that we believe needs to be, you know, considered, and all of those kinds of things. So there are curriculum teams. That the social studies is one that we've talked about often. The literacy team didn't start off to be a curriculum team. The literacy team started off 2 years ago to say, do we have a balanced literacy program? And where are we not finding as much success as we'd like? We're not finding as much success as we'd like in the areas of phonics and phonemic awareness, which are kind of like those beginning reading foundations. And what we found in just trying to look at that slice is that we were using 47 different curricular additions across our district. And so we went from, like, this is a small thing that we want to take a look at to this is a really big thing that we have to tackle, and we have to tackle it in kind of a coherent way across the district. What has happened over the course of those few years is we have 2 single curricular supplements that have proven to be super successful. And you'll hear teachers talk about them. The U-Fly has been something that you've probably seen if you've been in classrooms, or you've heard teachers talk about it. And head grading. Those are the 2 of those reading foundations that we have found, we've trained to, we've found some success with them just in terms of our efficacy of practice, but also we're seeing some really good student outcomes. So I don't think that we would have been in that place had we not started with a small group to tackle what we thought was, you know, maybe a smaller scale problem. And I think that's one of the great benefits of a district this size, is because you have people who they know each other, they want to work with each other, they want to work towards an ends
together and kind of fight it till we're done with it. And so we are right now on literacy phase 4. When we thought it might just be phase 1. It wasn't even named phase 1 at the beginning. It was just the literacy team. What has come from that is there have been there is a upper grade literacy team that will be convening this year that will be talking about not just reading foundations, but some of those other higher order reading issues like comprehension, like vocabulary development, like those kinds of things. And to suggest that it might be just in one phase, I think is kind of laughable right now because that's what we have the first time. It'll be a multiple phase plan to roll out. So those are some of the big ones that we're working on this year, but there are more. We have a math leadership team this year that will be starting, and that's, I think I talked to the board last fall about the new math framework that was approved by the state of California. So we'll be working with that leadership team along with the County Office of Education and many other districts, surrounding districts, to create a leadership team to understand the framework, understand the implications of the framework, the shifts in teaching and learning with the framework. And then eventually when the state school board adopts some text, then we'll take a look at that process, but they have not written them yet. So that's one that will continue. We have a really, really strong force that is driving grading for equity in this county. So we have a grading for equity instructional team over at New Brighton, and they're talking about how the impact of an F can affect a child's trajectory in terms of their personal efficacy in school with a failing grade and their inability to recover from that F grade. So like, what does it mean when we're grading students' work? What are we actually doing? Are we providing them feedback that's going to help them to grow? Or are we punitive in nature and just saying, well, you have a 0 and so that's it, right?
F's suck.
They do.
Yeah.
I don't believe in them.
Yeah.
But what we have seen is we've seen some really great transitions in kind of philosophy to say, like, I want to know that a student knows how to do something, and if they don't know how to do it, we're going to keep working at it until they do. And that's really kind of what we're all intending to have happen. So that's a really wonderful team that is starting at Main Street this year. At New Brighton this year. And then I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about our stewardship team, because that is a team that we just started last year. It used to be the district leadership team. And the stewardship team is not, it's not the opposite of a district leadership team, but really what it is intended to do is to say, we would like a group of educators to come together to talk about how we steward student success, the support for teachers to create student success, how to build support systems to create that, and then make sure that we're building the processes so that everybody understands what they are. And so that stewardship team is 14 members strong. It's actually not just teachers, it's classified members, it's administrators, and it is teachers. And what we talk about is like, what is our vision for student learning? And one of the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow is one of our meeting days, is, you know, do we expect all students to learn in our district? And what do we know about them? And are they? And if they are, great, let's keep doing those things. And if they're not, what different? What needs to be done differently? And this team is very, very good at saying hard things. So you're not invited to the team so you can say everything's going great. You're invited to the team because you're really honoring the stewardship work. We are really stewarding the district to do the things that are hard to do sometimes, and to be able to be a spokesperson for whoever you represent. So we have representatives from every school and every job class. And so I think that's one of the things that I just really wanted to impress upon with the school board tonight, is just to say, like, you hear about this ongoing work and it sounds like, you know, Jessica's having fun talking about all these different things that are happening, but it's really not just me having fun doing them. It's really a lot of us having fun doing hard work. And doing it where we see the need come up. So we're not just deciding, well, we're always gonna have this kind of team and we're gonna meet every Thursday. That's not the intention. Very few of our teams have a regular meeting time. And that is because we know that we need to meet more often when a need is larger. And we know we need to meet more strategically when teachers need to be in the classroom teaching their students. And so we really talk about like, what is the timing that we need to take to do this work and to keep people engaged in that work. So I just, you know, like I said, it's not a presentation, but I really wanted to share with the board that there is not any person on any one of those teams that, that gets the credit that they deserve, because a lot of times they're working, you know, silently, right? And their name isn't on the side of a building, but they're doing really, really, really amazing work. So in the future, what I would like to do is I'd like to be able to create a presentation with some of those groups, the structure that they're working on, some of the focus items that they're working on, and the membership of those teams. And so you can kind of see that highlighted. That's just my update. Any questions?
I think my only question is like, how does everyone find the
Yeah.
time, knowing how hard everyone works and the great need,
Yeah.
but also it's when people meet, is a lot of it on the Fridays, or you know, do teachers sometimes need to leave the classroom and have a sub so that they can be a part of a team meeting?
Yeah, it depends. So some of the teams like to meet after the school day is over. Some of the teams like to meet half day, like in the afternoon. Some teams like to meet when they know that their students are going to be going to enrichment classes like art or music. It can just really depend. And it can depend on how big the work is. So with the like one of the teams met over the summer when we were kind of going through the scope and sequence, because the scope and sequence needed to change because some of our materials had changed, and they were like, this is really big work. We need full days and we need multiple days in a row. You can't do that during the school year. So we really think about what's going to work for the staff that are involved in doing the work. And we do have staff, and we've had staff just this week saying like, I have this I need to do, and I have this and I need to do. I would like to take myself out this year, but this other person at my school is really interested in kicking themselves into the group now. And that's okay, you know, because we never want anyone to feel overtasked or overburdened. And it's all, while we pay people outside their contract time, we never make anybody participate in a team. It's completely voluntary. We had a teacher this year who had not been participating and did a lot of summer development, personal development, and was like, I'm ready. Like, can I please join this team? And it was like, of course you can. So we're not highly restrictive. In fact, we're not at all restrictive. Really, we want as many perspectives at the table as possible. And I do think, like I said, we have really positive working relationships within those groups. And so it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to go to this team and work on this thing. It's like, I get to work on with this team on this thing because it's a really important thing to work on. So
Thank you.
I was making a list as you were going of all the teams. It's so many. I'm looking, I hope someday to see something where it's all the teams and the people, because it just sounds, you know, comprehensive and interesting.
And there are more than that. Those were
I believe you. I imagined that. Yeah.
I'm still stuck on no Fs, but those are a great kick in the butt for kids.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are ways to change a child's mind about how they want to do in school. There's just lots of ways.
I totally agree. Yeah.
All
My
right.
kids like to play video games, so again, that's my excuse to be like, okay, you know, hey, let's get back to the basics.
All right. Any other questions or comments on instructional teams? No. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Yeah, it was just a discussion.
A discussion, sorry, wrong word.
No.
And I think you're the next one on the LCAP goal 1.
So before I get started on that, I just wanted to share, and Scott may have shared this already, but we did get our LCAP passed through the county. So yes, we did. Yay. So Thank you. So tonight's focus is on goal 1, specifically 1.3, and that's related to the Universal Academic Diagnostic Screener through iReady. And in our board report on Friday, you could see some preliminary results, which we're good, right? To start in a better place than you started the year before, it feels good. Just some things that we're noticing just preliminarily in this kind of baseline data is, you know, that we have a projected proficiency in English language arts at 57%. If we make no stretch growth happen. And so, like, as the board knows, is when we look at iReady data, they take a look at how our students are doing, and they have a way of projecting, like, if you're doing exactly what you're doing, this is where you're going to be. If you do a little bit more, this is where you're going to be. So what we found out through just kind of looking at through some of that baseline data is step 57% is if we're just kind of going along, but 73% if we kind of do that little push and we do that stretch growth. And so that's going to be the focus of our school principals this year, is to really talk about like what to do in order to get to that stretch growth, because 73% would be about 20% higher than we are at this point, you know, or what we were at this point last year. So not at this point, at the end of last year. So that is a huge growth projection that we'd like to focus on this year. The math pretest coming in kind of overall at 21% proficiency. And again, they're not supposed to be mastered by, you know, baseline, right? This where they're starting out. The projected proficiency for math is 42%, and that stretch growth is about 59%, which is about 20% higher than we ended last year. And so what we're working on is how to work with iReady specifically to help our school principals and our school staff know how to leverage the resources within iReady to get to that stretch growth percentage. So each of our principals, I met with our principals yesterday, and I met with iReady, and each of our principals is going to have a 2-hour coaching session with iReady specifically to help them to understand and develop their skill. And then they're going to be working with their site staffs individually at each of the sites to work towards how do we take the resources within iReady and what we know about the data that we're seeing to get to that stretch growth. So we're building into the system this year something different, and that is not just to look at the data and to have kids join my path and to look at resources as just resources, but how to strategically use an administrator and their teams to build a structure to use all of the resources within iReady to move the students towards a greater level of standards mastery. So I like that, you know, we're ready to be in that place. It is a great diagnostic tool to tell us where we are, but it includes so many more things than that. So I just wanted to share that with the board tonight, because you're used to me sharing information with you about like, how are students doing? And this, it's not just how they're doing, but how we're responding to how they're doing using the systems that we have in place. The one other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight for the board tonight, and that is just some areas of strength and some areas for growth. So our highest areas of achievement in English language arts are high frequency words and phonics and literature, which is great. Areas for us to continue to focus work are on overall comprehension in informational text. And that's not dissimilar than what you would see across the state of California. Our math domains that are the highest were surprising. So measurement and data, the highest. Algebraic thinking, the second highest. Areas for growth, numbers and operations and geometry. So those are just things that, you know, we will, as we continue to work with our teams, continue to say, like, let's, knowing what we know, put more of our energy into these places. And then just one more thing I wanted to share with the group is last year when we looked at our ELs in English language arts and math, we almost had 0% standards mastery at the baseline. So like if I was in first grade at the beginning of the year, my level of mastery as an English learner, I didn't have a level of mastery. This year in math and reading in almost every grade, English learners have a percentage of students in the mastery level. So that to me is a really big indicator to dive in a little bit deeper about like, why is that? Who are they? What's happening? So just those are just little tidbits over, you know, they just finished the test on Friday, so we're still doing a lot of deep diving into the data, but just wanted to share those things. Any questions about it?
Thanks so much.
Yeah, when do we go over the results?
So
When are those gonna be actually presented? We can see the graphs and the charts, comparison from year to year kind of thing.
we typically, once the CASP data is publicly available, which should be in about a month, we'll do a full like data presentation. So we'll kind of share like the CASP data, the CAST data, the iReady data, all of the data that we have. You'll get to kind of see like areas of growth and by grade and by group and those kinds of things, just like I do every year typically at the end of fall.
End of fall, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jessica.
What
One
was-
more thing. Oh, sorry.
What was the baseline for the language arts?
57%.
And then what is the, so math, there were
Oh,
three.
I'm sorry, 40%.
40, okay.
57% was the projected proficiency, and then the stretch
73.
growth was 73.
Do you have any plans to use, I've done some research and obviously I think a lot of us went last year to CSPA and heard Sal Khan speak about AI being integrated into programs and things like that. And I was wondering, it's kind of like a twofold question. One, I know you mentioned states changing some things and we're waiting for new textbooks and things like that. Is iReady planning on being still a part of that as the main system that we use? And then how are we going to integrate, if you have any knowledge on this? I'm not saying you know what's happening, but do we have any plans to integrate AI into the teaching models, or does iReady have any plans or something like that?
So two great questions and two really different answers. So every school district in the state of California has to have a local diagnostic assessment. And it has to be one that's research-based and approved by the state of California. iReady is one of them that is approved by the state of California. There are very few. So we will probably continue to work with iReady because not only are they approved by the state of California, but when we looked at our preliminary CASP results and we looked at our ending results in iReady, they were within 2 percentage points. So it is a really good indicator for us, and a reliable indicator for us. So yes, we will probably continue to look at iReady at least into the next year. And of course, there's always new things that come up. So, we'll always be mindful of that. With regard to AI, many of our teachers are already using AI for instructional purposes. And so what that looks like is, let's say you have a text section that you're having students read. You can ask, as an educator, you can ask AI to change the lexile level of that content for students in the classroom that might read at a lower level. And so that the students are reading about the same topic, they just have a different lexile level of mastery, but the students can all access the same material. So many of our teachers are using AI right now in instructional planning.
Cool.
So those are just two answers.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for those discussion items. Moving on to action items, consider approval of the 23-24 unaudited actual financial report.
Thank you.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so here we are at the 23-24 unaudited actual. So I gotta make sure I click and slide at the same time. So factors for 23-24 that we're aware of all year was the drop of enrollment. It impacts our ADA because we less students, less ADA. We're able to reduce our contributions to SPED. So that really helped the unrestricted side of the house. We started tightening our spending and preparing for the out years. for in 23-24, and that's something that we had talked about before. That was like our focus to try to, you know, start tightening now instead of waiting till later. And a positive note, P2 attendance, we're up 2% from 22-23. So we went from 91% to 93% for ADA, which is awesome. Okay, now looking at the numbers, I did a comparison because I figured this was the easiest thing for everyone to look at, and from estimated actuals to unaudited actuals. And you can see the differences over to the right. Revenue for unrestricted and restricted was slightly up, and that was across the board in different areas. Contributions you'll see in unrestricted was up, where you'll see it was down in restricted, because that was less that we had to contribute to our restricted side of the house. So that's a plus. Our total expenses for unrestricted were down almost $200,000, and the same with restricted. We were about $150,000. So if you look at what the bottom line is, we ended up ending about $478,000 higher than we expected at estimated actuals for unrestricted. So that's great. And for restricted, it was about $197,000.
Sam Beggar. That's great.
Yeah. So even though we did have that savings in 23-24, we did see a drop in enrollment for 24-25. And I thought it would be important for us to see what that looks like as of now. So you'll see the very first line that shows what we had projected at adopted for 24-25 through 26-27. So this was before we knew what enrollment was going to be. We're anticipating, you know, it was going to be a little bit higher than it was, and it came in a lot lower. So for 24-25, you'll see that we're expecting about a $48,000 loss. 25-26, about a $59,000, almost $60,000 loss. And then once we get to 26-27, it's roughly about $206,000. And the reason why 26-27 jumps up so high, even though the COLA is going up to about 3.8%, we're being funded on the 3-year rolling average. So as the years drop for our enrollment in ADA, then our percentage drops. So that means our 3-year average gets lower and lower. Now, if it happened to be that our 3-year average dropped too low, then we would be paid based on, or funded based on our actual ADA for the year. So hopefully this changes. Again, it's projections. And so I also wanted to show how it compounds. So that very bottom line, yes, the first year it's about 48,000, but then it compounds every year. So then it just keeps, it kind of snowballs.
And is that based upon a continuing decline in enrollment, or where enrollment is at now at its lowest point? So it's based on a slight decline. So I baked in a slight decline in 25-26 as well as 26-27. And again, we're working with school services. We're getting another demographic study just to kind of compare the numbers to see if we can get closer to projecting, then we can really know where we possibly could be at in the out years. But again, it can be, even with the demographic study, it still is tricky. Right. Because they can have, you know, housing projections that they're seeing, you know, developments going up, but then again, and expecting so many families based on how many units and so forth. But then again, it could come in where it could be families that may be doubled up within our area, and then they're just kind of going to the new housing, and then so there we wouldn't really see an increase. So we always have to prepare for things like that. So that's why I wanted to really show this slide, because I thought it was important for everyone to see, you know, the effects of, even though we're not paid on enrollment, we're paid on ADA. As enrollment drops, ADA drop. And then we have our other funds. Child nutrition ended at about 988,000. Capital facilities about 1.5. And out of that 1.5, we have our COP, which is about 600,000. That's yearly.
up until about, I think, 2035, we pay that. And then on top of that, we still have a piece of climate tech that we will still be paying since they finished the project this year. So we'll be receiving those bills shortly. So just want to give everyone a heads up on that. Fund 35, this is the field fund. So the 5.6. I'm really loving that. I like the interest we receive on that. So as long as we can hold on to that, because we get almost about $100,000 interest or so. So, yeah. So more importantly, looking ahead, it's managing our declining enrollment, how it's impacting our out years, working with school services, what we can do. I mean, I know we talked about, you know, having each school like Santa Cruz Gardens, they have the garden, the SAGE program. So each school making it a place where, okay, they have their specialty here, but, you know, doing the best we can to get the word out about what specialty each one of our sites has to offer. That's important, and just being prepared and start tightening expenses. As far as attendance, since we are going the right direction with attendance, if we can keep that momentum going, that would be amazing to have attendance incentives. I had a great one today. I'll just say it. A bunch of baby guppies in my office.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Like the fair.
Oh.
And you get it. There are no
Yeah,
bad ideas.
it was just a joke, but you know, at the fair, you know, the kids will spend like $20 trying to get the little
Goldfish on a Ziploc bag.
It was a joke. But on all seriousness, just continuing the principals, they've been doing a great job with incentives at their sites, and it really paid off. It showed in 23-24. So if they can just continue that work, that'd be amazing. New independent study guidelines, the 1 day, we're really hoping that that really works, because that will be, it could be a big game changer. So getting all the information out early, making sure that front office staff and principals are fully trained and aware of how it works, and making sure that it's followed up, that students and parents are receiving the information. That's going to be key. So that's another thing we're working on. And again, just tighten our spending going forward. And then we have our FTP or FPT, I would say backwards, meeting coming next week. So then we'll start prioritizing and, you know, next steps and planning for the future as well there too.
When is that next week?
Tuesday. Yeah.
And
then there we go at the ribbon
That's a good
cutting.
way to lose weight.
That's an attendance incentive right there. You get those guys and that little mascot, classroom.
Yeah. On our awesome new playground.
That's right.
Yeah, that turned out great. And is there any questions?
Yeah, okay, the ADA.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember it. So let's say tomorrow, bam, you know, it's 100%. When will that benefit the district?
So P2 is the period that the district gets paid for. So if say tomorrow, are you just talking 1 day? Or are you talking like, say for example, P2 came out at 100%?
Let's say, yeah, okay, then that would.
So if P2 came out at 100%, and that 100% was more than the 3-year rolling average, then that would hit our district for a current year. So otherwise, it's the 3-year rolling average. It'll go back 3 years and see what's higher. It takes what's higher, and obviously the 100% would be higher. So we'd be funded off of that, the 100%.
At what point, the next fiscal year or the current fiscal year?
That would be what we project for the current fiscal year.
Okay.
If it was at P2, yeah.
And did you also say the same would be true if it were really low for some strange reason?
Right.
Like we still get
The 3-year rolling average, whichever.
the old, yeah.
And the 3-year rolling average doesn't seem to be going anywhere. They're keeping 3-year rolling average. That 1 year that really helped us when ADA was really high, and that's what's kind of hurting, is that year is kind of rotated out also. But yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I know. Yeah.
Some of these future numbers they just feel so big. I'm looking at the LCFF funding projections through the 26-27 years. And then, I mean, your presentation is coming after the master plan, and I'm thinking about, certain school sites that have less students, and then are we, how much are we investing? Is there a way to kind of know some of these numbers before we make some of these big decisions about facility plans and where we put money?
Yes, that's something that we'll look at. And I know BJ, he had mentioned that's going to be the next phase, kind of looking at enrollment and so forth to make sure that we allocate the bond funds, because bond funds and LCFF funds, they're two different buckets. So they don't tie together, but it's important to make sure that we don't put a bunch of bond funds in, one of our facilities that are shrinking. So to use it properly, and that's something that we're going to totally vet, and that's something that we'll all come together and talk about, and we'll have all the data and so forth to look at together.
And is it kind of a little bit of the mystery where we don't exactly know these numbers, but it's like a good guess? Or is it that it's like wild, kind of like the COLA where it went from, just these big shifts?
So what we try to do, or what I try to do, is do the best projection I can to get as close as I could possibly project. So,
but is there a point where we kind of really can know, or not really?
Not really.
Not really, yeah.
That's the fun thing about school budgets. It's a forever changing.
Yeah.
Today it's one thing and tomorrow it's something else. So it's forever changing, and we don't know, like, if for this year, for 24-25, we won't have our actual enrollment number until, is it October 4th or 5th this year, SUESD Day? So that's when we have our final actual enrollment number. So
When we hear presentations from like the legislative analyst office, they literally have something called the cone of uncertainty.
yeah.
And it's like, it can go anywhere from here to here. We have to live in that cone of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you come in at 100% sure, I won't want you to give me the lottery numbers.
Yeah.
I think we should all be playing that. Yeah. All right. So, and that's why we're trying to get more information. Like, that's why we talk to school services. That's why we're going to get another demographic study.
Yeah.
But even sometimes, like I said, with the demographic studies, their numbers aren't even, they don't even project properly either. It's just a big estimate.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? No? All right. Thank you so much.
We're not going to go through each sheet here.
Yeah.
We do have the TED rule, we gotta be mindful.
All right, moving on. Oh, this is an action item.
Yes.
May I have a motion from the board?
I'll make the motion to approve the 23-24 unaudited actuals financial report.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It passes.
Thank you.
All right, 6B, consider approval of the Board of Trustees Governance Handbook.
The last board meeting, the team did a first reading, and there was one suggestion in two places. And that's that the board president may also be included in the processes, and on page 4 and page 7. So draft you see tonight includes those. And I ask you to consider approving.
All right, questions or comments? It looks good to me.
Mhm. Actually, I played with AI with some of these here and really simplified it. I asked to do it like 6th grade level. It's great. It's just like a couple sentences and simplified.
It's like,
I want to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Work hard and be nice.
You do kindergarten those drawings for you. You tell it happy faces.
All right, if there's no questions or discussion, then do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the Board of Trustees Governance Handbook, second reading.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Approved.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Jen, for putting it all together in a nice, manageable format.
6C, consider approval of board policy 0415 equity.
The last board meeting, we had a robust discussion on this policy. And so I just want to bring to you a couple of areas of focus, following up from that robust discussion, following up with, after having consulted, as board requested with our wonderful consultant, Nicole Anderson. Also reaching out to some members of our LGBTQIA+ community here within our own district. And so the changes therein, you will see on page 1 of 5 of the policy, which is page 176 of the docket. You will see that, as we talked about last time, we have added in on that first bullet on the LGBTQIA+ status. And then after much discussion, we did stick with the word identity after gender, so gender identity. And then the other suggestion was also on that page, and it was in the next section on equitable decision making. And there was just some good suggested rewording of that to make it a little bit more in line with the language we usually use. The board shall make decisions with deliberate awareness of impediments to learning faced by students from historically marginalized groups. And that is certainly language we used a lot in our work with Nicole and in our special study sessions. So those were the changes from the last time we looked at this policy based on the discussion on the follow-up. So I ask you to consider approving it.
All right, questions or comments from the board?
I received correspondence on this as well, and it was brought to my attention that I should bring up who is doing the identifying. If we are identifying or misidentifying kids, and how do we protect our children from being identified if they just have questions or concerns or things like that. And I've got another one that was pretty much just, why can't we let kids be kids kind of thing. I feel it's my job to bring those up and ask questions, especially who's qualified to do the identifying, was the big one that got brought up to me. So
certainly, that would be a very in-depth discussion. I will just say that gender identity doesn't only mean, I think it sounds like from the question is kind of about students who choose to express their gender in a way that wasn't assigned to them at birth, right? And so that's not the only thing gender identity means. Gender identity is really just an elaboration of inclusiveness. And this is saying, as along with, we don't care race, color, or creed. All students, all families are welcomed here. We're an inclusive educational agency. It also means it doesn't matter which gender identity. It just doesn't matter. We're inclusive. We take all comers. We educate everybody equally. So I think maybe honing in on that gender identity is thinking about, gender transition is only a part of the equation.
Seems to be a pretty big part of that equation, especially when it sounds to me like you're relying on a 7 or 8-year-old to identify themselves and figure out what they are, what they aren't. At least that's what's been brought to my attention in regards to this. And how do we protect kids that feel anxiety or maybe feel the need to be different, as opposed to giving them a label one way or the other, instead of just letting them enjoy their kids. I agree with the fact that we protect everybody. There's no question in my mind about that this goes beyond just this or any of these groups. I mean, no child, no matter what, should ever feel uncomfortable in school,
And
or
that's,
that
and,
they're,
and that's the heart of the policy.
that's what I agree with. I agree with that. I just, I have deeper questions about this particular subject, and the questions that the people I represent have brought to me, and specifically on how does that happen? How do we let a 7-year-old say, I'm not this and I'm this, or something else? And then how does that reinforcement happen, or that label happen, or that everything else after that seems to be a big part of just kids trying to fit in and feeling anxiety or trying to, whether it's their truth,
I have a strong recommendation that on September 27th, that you consider attending the Rainbow Conference and hear from some folks that are really engaged in the community. There is that adult track for just these kind of questions. It's a perfect forum for it.
I'll mention that to the people that send me correspondence as well,
Yes.
to let them know. I think that, that's a good suggestion.
I would invite these folks who send you and apparently you alone, this correspondent, to also address the rest of the board. Like you mentioned, your constituents, like you only have this core group of people, and I mean, I'm not hearing from any of these folks. I'm, you know, I've been spoken to about folks, you know, thanking us for this conversation we had around this at our last meeting. So I think we might all have some folks who talk to us, but again, like, I don't think people should ever feel like they should just tap into one particular school board member. Even if they, you know, may feel politically aligned or aligned in some other way, they're the person who lives next door to you, et cetera. Like you're welcome to reach out to the whole school board, because I'd love to know, especially like, who are these folks? I'd like to know. Are you a parent in our school? Are you a concerned staff member? Are you someone who, you know, is a grandparent who had their, you know, who has fond memories of SoCal? Like how can we build these connections and build these bridges if people are concerned about what's happening in our schools? How can we help share all the good news and hear from them too about, you know, what they'd like to know? Because I appreciate that you report out on what you hear, but I'd like to know who it is. So we
I think that's maybe the point where they don't ask you, because they don't want other people to know certain feelings because of the pressure that they get from certain people or certain groups when they have something that might not be up somebody's alley or something along those lines. And they're probably, at least related to me, afraid of what people might say or call them in today's political climate. So I think that for whatever reason, there's a safe space for people, you know, and I encourage that. If they feel comfortable talking to me about something, I'm certainly comfortable talking and then bringing up these things too. So.
Any other thoughts from the board? I do have a comment from the public on this agenda item, just so we don't overlook it.
I was just gonna say, I do not read this policy as the school district, the school, the teachers saying that they are going to be the ones declaring, oh, you are this race, you are this ethnicity, you are this gender. Like it doesn't, there's nothing about this language that reads to me as that. So what I hear from your the people who emailed you is that who should be making this decision? Well, it's not, that's not what this policy is saying.
And that's what I agree with.
This policy is saying we're gonna respect how people present to us. We're gonna understand the barriers that people have. We're gonna do our best to make everyone welcome and have an education. I don't think.
And that's what I, as a board member, 100% agree with you at.
And I think it's important for people to, for you to pass that on, because that's what the intent of this policy is. And I understand how some of this language might be triggering to people, but I want them to understand that we're not trying to do what I think they're reading into it.
And that's what I agree. I agree. But I also feel it's.
Yeah.
Well, I love at the heart of it that we're keeping students in mind and inclusiveness and equity in mind. I think there's no more comments from the board. Would you please read the public comment?
Yes, so this is on action item 6C, board policy 0415 from Melina Reich, parent and employee in the district. I am writing to speak to the conversation that was had during the last board meeting regarding the inclusion of board policy 0415, equity. There was a situation brought up for an allowance of gender only in reference to boys and girls in class. I posed this question. What if your student that does not identify as either of those two? Then is the message of this board that you're not included in this policy of equity. This policy is not to allow the identification from teachers or school staff. My understanding is that is to hold a space and to let those students and families know that this district values them and will create a safe space for them. We all have a gender. What we need to understand is that there is no longer only the two genders. No matter what your personal beliefs are, allowing gender in this equity policy is stating that the school is not identifying, but rather respecting an individual based on what they have communicated or their families make up.
All right, thanks for reading that. That goes along with our changes to our policy. So that So now it's to a vote, right?
Correct.
All right, so may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve board policy 0415 equity.
All right, is there a second?
I will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, board policy 0415 passes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on to 6D, consider accepting donations from the public and parent groups to support SoCal Union School District. And then, are you presenting on this or is this?
This is Allison's item.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so we just wanted to bring to the board the donations that we have received. We have received some amazing donations in the past month. You'll see that we received a very large donation for the volleyball equipment.
Yeah, that's a chunk right there.
From Jen Furman, Main Beach Volleyball. Bookshop Santa Cruz, $3,125 for our Main Street Library. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Guy and Beth Kawasaki.
Yeah.
$500 for the Main Street Library. Thank them too. And Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County, $7,188. And again, for the Main Street Library to help out with our rolling carts. So we appreciate all these donations. It's amazing. It really feels good that the community is helping out our schools. So thank you.
All right.
And this is an action item.
Yeah, it's great.
We
Yeah,
vote
this-
to approve accepting the fund.
Yeah, that's for Main Beach volleyball. That's, it's gonna be a good season there. So that's great. Now, as far as Main Street Library, I mean, that's great. Do the other schools? I'm trying to remember if they get library funds. Is Bookshop Santa Cruz, they do a grant, right? Is it more of a kind of like which probably would say a grant for the school, we give to the schools?
Well, what they did, this was specifically for the Main Street Library due to the flood.
Oh, okay.
So the
All right.
same for the
Okay.
Community Foundation of Santa Cruz. They're donating to assist us with the damages of the Main Street Library,
Great, okay.
as well as Guy and
Is it overkill to go down the row and each person say thank you?
No.
Collective thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Collective thank you. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Do we have a motion to accept these generous donations for
Yeah, I
our
make a
school?
motion to accept the generous donations, the gracious donations, the wonderful donations from the public and parent groups to support SoCal Union Elementary School District sites and programs.
Well said. Do I have a second?
I'll second, considering accepting donations from the public and parent groups to support SoCal Union Elementary School District sites and programs.
Gracious and generous.
Gracious and generous.
Abundant. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you so much. So good.
Yeah, that's.
All right. Great one to end on. Any correspondence? Feel free to reach out to Scott or I. Future agenda items. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All right, a second?
Aye.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second.
I'm
We're
not sure if the I counted as.
It was aye. Say aye, Captain. Aye.
Everybody.
Yeah, it might be a little.